Welcome, friends, family, people I've never met before, enemies, anybody out there. How's it going? You've reached the show, A Flawed Man of God, and I am your host, Stuart Davis. I'm a deacon at a small church that's outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor, I'm not a biblical scholar, and I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit. Talk about Christianity, talk about the Bible, talk about a wide variety of topics, issues, and current events, and give you my perspectives on them. One that I think is part of, um, you know, an average Christian guy. I've been a Christian all my life, 40 years, non-denominational Protestant. I don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination. I'm just in the Word daily, trying to get things better each day. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes I could do better. But either way, when I'm on the stream, you're going to get my takes on things. So if you are somebody who is new to Christianity, or if somebody who's just curious about it, you're seeking some meaning in something, you're looking to maybe to see if maybe there's more to your life than just your existence here on earth. Welcome to the show. Hope you're able to find what you're looking for. Let this be like, just let you know, this is a reminder. Very lay approach. I am not a professional. This is an amateur stream about God. This is all about discipleship. But hopefully, you will find a welcome environment where it's casual, relaxed, laid back approach to talking about God, and maybe you'll get some insights, maybe some inspiration to go to church, because you might find somebody like me there. Maybe I can help dispel some stereotypes, some misgivings, preconceptions you have. A lot of people think the Bible is a boring book full of rules and judgment. There's way more to it than that. There's rules, there's judgment, but there's also deep narrative. There's heroes, villains, there's clashes between armies. There's angels coming down, laying waste to the enemy. There's betrayal. There's all kinds of tragedy and misfortune. But more than that, there's honor, there's love, there's redemption, there's sacrifice, there's salvation. You'll find stories, you'll find poetry, you'll find songs, you'll find prophecy fulfilled, prophecy yet to be fulfilled. There's so much more to Scripture than just what its detractors will tell you about it. And they know. Maybe you think, maybe you think church is full of hypocrites, self-righteous folks who go there, gather around to make themselves feel important, justify their actions, maybe rip off folks begging for money. There's churches out there like that. That's not Christianity. There are also churches out there that do reflect Christianity. Churches that adhere to Scripture, that listen to the Word, that truly love God and our brothers and sisters in Christ. Heaven's a big place. We want as many people there as possible. We want you there too. And a good church is one that fosters a family relationship, a familial relationship, where folks are treated with such. There's support. There's accountability. There's love. There's confessions. All sorts of stuff. So give it a try. And hopefully, like I said, you'll enjoy what you get here on this stream. If you like it, and I'll remind you at the end of the stream, give me a like, subscribe, share this with other people. I don't ask for money here. If you want to support the show, bring other people to it. That's the best way to do it. Word of mouth, folks. Good evening. It's Thursday, and I am just as tired as I was last night when I decided not to stream. But look, I can't lean on that excuse forever. Plus, I miss you guys. How's it going? Nico's in the chat, MR, and Mr. Felty. Glad to see you guys here. Glad to see you guys here. I see, before we get into it, we'll do some, we'll talk about some things. Because, we were discussing Joe Neerman, and I was listening to his show today, his live stream today, because I don't know how many of you guys are following the Alec Murdaugh trial, but it ended a lot faster than I thought it was. And a lot of people thought that, the jury would at least deliberate sometimes, but that's back. It's back, and he's guilty, according to a jury of his peers. Due process has been at least practiced in some respect. And I think that's worth talking about a little bit. Maybe we'll talk about that for tomorrow. But it stinks that that I think that I think that the state put a pretty terrible case on, and yet he still got convicted. But when you live a life built on a lie, you make yourself vulnerable to stuff like this. I mean, we should a month-long trial for a 2-hour deliberation. He might have been convicted because he wasn't a good guy. Maybe not because he did it. I've paid attention to. I probably followed between 2/3 and 3/4 of the trial. Not been convinced. In fact, like many, I'm convinced. I'm more convinced than not that he didn't do it. But I do think that he's probably responsible in some way through his actions that it led to this. Did he deserve it? I don't know. Did the other two deserve it? I don't think so. But what's done was done. And what judgments has passed. And what are we left into the wake is to look about how did we get here? And the first place, if you really want to talk about the first place to assign blame, it's Alec. It's Alec. And but he's not the only one to blame. And like I said, I don't think he did it. But it is I'll talk more about it later. I'll save that for tomorrow. We'll get into that. I thought what I really wanted to, that's what Dresden said. He's a bad guy, but not a proven murderer, in my opinion. Yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt, there is plenty of reasonable doubt, and I don't think South Carolina isn't all that different from the area in Virginia that I'm from. We talk slower. We speak a little bit more plainly than in northern, western cities, and their folk. But what we do enjoy is a lot of conviction behind what you say. And I don't think those closing arguments, while they made some good points, they lacked a lot of conviction behind it. And I don't think that resonated that well, because look, especially if it's and I don't know if these are folks that are country church going types, Southern Baptists. Southern church types, we're used to a fiery sermon. And I think putting that, if you put a little taste of that into a closing argument, I think it resonates well. But that's just me. And again, as much as I'm a layperson about what I talk about on this stream, I'm much more of a layperson on that. But at the same time, people on the jury were too. Those people are common folks. And I think that's one of the things that why I watch these shows. Is that they're interesting. The commentary is great and you learn something out of it. But I think some of the things that are missing is the perspective, because they're like, oh, that a lot of talk about what a jury should do, and some talk about how something might impact on a jury's thoughts. But everybody on all these panels are lawyers for the most part. At least, when I'm watching Joe's show or watching Nick's show or watching whoever, when it's Nick, Joe, Branca, Vices, any of those guys. I'm sure it's difficult for them to separate the mentality of all the law and all the concept and all that stuff, and divorce themselves from that to say, okay, well, if I'm just Joe Blow coming in off the street and I don't really know much about this, how would I react? And also understanding that sometimes people will judge somebody by what they think. They might think, well, he might get off on those other charges, but we know he's guilty of something big and he's hurt some people. So there you go. I don't know. Maybe some of them will speak out about it. I'm sure they will. I would. I would 100%. I'd talk about it. Best believe it. But no, what got me thinking about it was I was on my way home listening to, it was after the court had adjourned, I think, for the day, or that the jury had been let out to whatchamacallit, to deliberate. Uncivil Law, who I enjoy, actually. He's one of my favorite personalities on that, the regular panel of personalities that come on through Nick's stream, legal streams. Uncivil Law, he was talking about, he was quite inebriated. And, but he seems so sad. He seems so sad, and he seems so happy for people who were doing things better, than he felt like he was doing. And I just want to put my arm around him and go, Uncivil, come to church. You're doing all right. But I think that he did have he had something to be, he said he found respect because of guys who were able to have a family and maintain a family. And Joe was like, well, I don't know about that. And, kind of the aw shucks, I don't know. Kurt, that's right. I was trying to remember him, his name. But, I guess we don't really appreciate it somehow. Somewhat. Folks like me, been married well over 10 years, family, kids, kind of just, we've carved out our piece of life, right? And we hopefully have wives that we deeply love and respect because they are women deserving of such. But what we oftentimes don't give us credit for is that they've decided we are men deserving of that as well. And what is it about us that does that? We may not be introspective enough to understand, because the things that we do day in and day out just come naturally for us. Some people say, well, you're a hard worker, or man, you really you really poured your heart into this, and you put a lot of effort and work into something, and I'm like, I don't really sometimes I feel like I'm lazy. I feel like I'm lazy, and you don't know, you just don't realize it, that maybe the stuff that you're doing might impress other people. I guess not going off to try to impress other people is part of it. So we get into the comments. I just saw that and I was like, hey, give a good, you know, prayer to Kurt and folks who kind of feel like him, that they will find their place. I know that he's got some tertiary, at least, understanding of Christianity. Like I said, I want everybody to make it, but the guys that I really have an affinity for, you kind of like, man, you really want them to make it. Anyway, Nico, welcome back. I know you missed the long stream. On the road with crappy internet today. It is what it is, man. Just tune in how you can. And thanks for the appreciation, Matthew. That's good. A flawed follower. I like that. That's what I said. A flawed folks is how I put the locals group, because that's what that's what I love. Flawed folks. That's what we is. Dresden, some churches, yes, but not all. Exactly. We can look at the Joel Osteen's churches. We can look at the Kenneth Copeland churches. We can look at your Bethels and your Hillsongs and Elevation Worship, all these mega churches. We can look at the corruption in the Southern Baptist Church, in the Catholic Church, and some of these other places, and we can point fingers and find, look, here's the thing. Wherever you find vulnerability, you will find somebody trying to take advantage of it. And nothing is more vulnerable than your faith. And because that faith is vulnerable, your spirit and what you believe in with your heart, you are something that you are deeply honest and open with. There are going to be people out there who understand that and know that they can take advantage of that, manipulate that. That's why, even though you're vulnerable and how you're open, that's why discernment is so important. Be discerning in how you react, and protective. Be protective. We talk about gatekeep your hobbies, gatekeep your faith. We want anybody to come in, but that doesn't mean, but with the understanding that they don't set the rules. We don't make the rules. None of us make the rules. God made the rules, makes the rules. He can change them if he wants, but he hasn't. And it's true because it's sitting there in scripture, and we haven't had any reason to think it's changed. And Christ said, if you love me, keep my commandments. We got a whole book of Leviticus, and we've got a whole set of commandments to go off of. Nico, hey, thanks for doing the stream. Love to catch it live. Hey, Nico, love having you here. I mean, look, I can't remember. Did you miss Hezekiah too? You've missed every time we've talked about awesome kings, you've missed it. Except for Asa. Everyone since Asa. That's okay. We got Chronicles coming up, and they focus a little bit more on Judah. So we'll see more from Hezekiah, and we'll see more from Josiah. And yes, Matt. Yeah, I popped up. In fact, I was my in-laws are at the casino right now. Right. So, hey, maybe they win it big. They love going to casinos. They take some of their retirement money. They go out there. They do what they want to with it. And they've been gone long enough to be having a good time. But I was watching. I was sitting in the living room in their suite with the kids, and my mother-in-law, she had her iPad over there, and it popped up with an alert. And I looked down and said, Alec Murdaugh found guilty on all charges. And I was like, well, Yeah. So I guess we'll got something to talk about. And then I just said, I wonder if Joe's still streaming because he was doing the stream today, and I popped it up. I was like, he's still on there, dude. They are doom and gloom about this, and to some degree I get it, but from other degree it's like this is not the case to get doom pilled over. We already talked about Dresden. By the way, Dresden, good to see you here. MR, it was a poorly done case on both sides. I tend to actually disagree with Nick in that the defense did not put on the proper job they needed to. I felt like, yeah, I felt like it was kind of half-hearted almost. I was losing it during the defense closer. You actually have to perform. Yes, exactly. Do it like a priest. Lawyers need to be actors too. What you need to be convincing in the fact that you either should talk like I'm talking, or you should talk with elevated passion. If you're passionate that you think, if you're being a deep advocate for something, I feel like you should make that known when you communicate. I don't know. I've never been in that situation. Nick's a friend. He seems like he would. I've never seen him in action, and probably we won't again. But you think that would be a person who probably passionately defends somebody. I got another buddy, who is a prosecutor. He probably passionately advocates on behalf of the state. And I've got a elder who is a judge, and I know that his job weighs on him. The weight of the responsibility weighs on him. And again, and I think I've talked about this before, because I know that it weighs on him and that it matters to him and it's not just the job. That's why I think he's a good person for the role. Right. Some of them have been doing it too long to be a lay person. Hey, Matthew. Matthew, I like Kurt too. Sometimes I want to give him a pep talk and a hug. Yeah. Kurt is a good guy. I like Kurt. He gets a lot of grief sometimes, I think, in the chat, because sometimes he might have feelings on something, but what I think that he does better than anybody on that panel is really kind of objectively, dispassionately break down why he thinks a case is going to go in certain one way or another, better than most folks. And that's what I appreciate. He's a lot of times when he's talking about something, he's the straight man, right? He is kind of the dispassionate voice or analysis, where, like, when it's him and Nick on, he's dispassionate, and Nick's the color guy, right? And they're both very smart people, but you're getting those two, that dynamic there, which I think is really good. Watch it when it was just him and Nick. The Rittenhouse trial was great, but when it was just him and Nick at the beginning, it was really interesting watching those two, do it. And there were so many different dynamics of personality there throughout it. But I thought that one in particular stuck out to me. Also, their reaction when what's his face started dropping slurs in his opening statement. Matt, I'm single, never married, and 42. I empathize with the lonely path. Matt, I hope you find I hope you find what you're looking for, if you are still looking for it. If you're settled and comfortable with where you're at, hey man, good for you. But if not, hey man, I want success and salvation for all. Blessings to everybody, except the pedophiles. Emmanuel, there you are. Hey guys, good to be here. I'm with family tonight, so I won't be talking much. Blessings to your family. Nico, yeah, I've been on and off those streams. I'm so behind on the names, lol. Well, we're going to be going over them again because Chronicles, we're going to be doing First and Second Chronicles. Everything, it's basically, think of this like an anime arc, right? We're going to drop off at second tonight. We're going to, at the end of the last chapter, we're going to drop off and it's going to lead into Babylon, right? The Babylon part of things. And then we're going to go right back into, we're going to go first and second Corinthians, and we're kind of going to go right back through it again. Or not Corinthians, First and Second Chronicles. First and Second Chronicles, and we're going to go right through it again, and then we're going to roll through it. So just make sure you're here for it. And Mar says he knows his shit. Legally speaking, he's very sound. I know, that's what I get. Like, I'm not a legal person. Like, I've never studied law or any of that stuff. But just listening to him analyze it, it's very thoughtful. It's very he seems very meticulous and ordered in his thoughts. And I think that's why when he speaks, I listen, whether I agree with him or not. Speaks, I listen. So Kurt's a good dude, and he's been part of that show for that side of the show for a while, and I think that's it's a good thing. All right, guys, how everybody doing? I've had an interesting. Before we get into this too much, I had an interesting day. Got in an argument with somebody I'm close to over something that they did that I didn't approve of, and it's difficult. It wears on me some. It wears on me some, and I don't like. I'm an argumentative person. I grew up in a family of people. Both of my parents like to argue. My brother and I, either genetically or just because it was how we were raised, we like to argue. My mom's side of the family, they like to argue. It was an interesting environment for my wife to walk in on. So when we were dating, but so I will openly argue with somebody. I try not to. I had a meeting I had a work meeting that was not supposed to be combative, but I was very matter of fact in what I presented. This was with another company. I said, hey, X is going on, and I think we need to look at it. This has gotten my attention. This has gotten the attention of other people, and we need to work on it. The other company gets immediately defensive. And they start saying, well, you're accusing me. I was like, I'm not accusing you of anything. What I'm saying is this is what I see. And I think that you probably have gotten caught up in this as well. I don't think that you're doing anything maliciously. But in this case, I think that somebody's taking advantage of you and you're not paying attention to that. And as a result, somebody else is not being looked after. And, I was prepared for the idea that it might, but I just did not see it when I gave that approach. I gave it my deacon attitude. I came in there with my deacon disposition, where I am, thoughtful, quiet, trying to be matter of fact, empathetic for a bit. And then they said accusation. At some point, they basically, kind of gave up on it. And I was okay, fine, kind of made it sound like they didn't trust that I was telling the truth. And then they needed data. And I said, if you need the data, I'll go back and get it for you. That's not a problem. I just came in here to have a conversation about it, to raise my hand and say, look, something's up. And maybe we should put our heads together on finding a solution about this so that everybody is best served. And but if you want data, I can go back into data. But if you call me a liar, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I'm gonna walk out of this. I'm gonna walk out that door, and I'm gonna know I told the truth. And ultimately, that's all that matters to me in that case, because I do have the data on my side. And if you're not, and if I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt and you're not giving me the benefit of the doubt, then that just tells me that either you don't want to listen, or it's not important to you, or maybe you are somewhat culpable in this. Do business honestly, folks. The best business relationship was when everybody's making money and everybody is served. Your customer is served, you're making money, your vendor's making money, right? That's kind of that. It's kind of how that relationship wheel works. Don't try to take advantage. If something's good, keep it rolling. Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. Anyway, so yeah, I had that a few days ago, which is fine. I got a solution for that problem. That's no big deal. Just kind of disappointing. But the argument tonight, not with my wife. It's not with my wife. It is somebody with I'm close to. But you know, it's just like you have that argument. It's just like, look, told you this. Told you I didn't think it was right. I think you should reconsider. But next time, be more honest with me when you say this. And then that sparked a whole thing. It sparked a whole thing, and didn't like the setting it happened in. But we'll get past it. We always do. And there you go. Here we go. Can't wait to hear about Babylon. I legit have only heard about it in reggae. You didn't hear about it in Unwritten Law? That's a guys. That's a guilty pleasure of mine. I like that band, Unwritten Law. Some of their songs, and Babylon is a great one because it reminds me. If y'all don't remember, Babylon is modern day Iraq. And when I was in Iraq, it was just kind of an interesting song title. And I like jamming out to Unwritten Law. Love riding my motorcycle to Unwritten Law for some reason. Just like it. And Mark, I get it. I'm a noob, but excited to learn. Hey, that's no problem. You finna be taught. In some respect, you're gonna learn through the. You're gonna learn through Scripture, and then responding to what I had to say earlier. Legally speaking, you just put them on notice. You're doing the right thing. Yeah, and this wasn't really this wasn't like something where I was like we're gonna get lawyers involved or anything. But this is like, hey, like guys, we've got this relationship, right? And boop. And so I'm just telling you this. And if and are you willing to sacrifice ties over this? I mean, I would. I don't know. That's fine. It's like we can move in a different direction, or we can keep going forward and just understand that this is the way things are. But I'm gonna get mine. I'm gonna do right by me and mine. As for me and my family, we serve the Lord. Yay, yeah, Unwritten Law has been around a minute. And I just something about them. Like they're not a big name or anything. It's just a whole lot of and it can be really crass, but again, it just kind of hits me. It's got a good melody. Oh, of course, I was a punk rocker as a kid. Yeah, like Offspring. I wasn't so much of a punk rocker, but just some of the stuff. I just like music that when it hits me, I like it. Most of it was grunge in the 90s. Don't worry about it, MR. We're going to read. All right. We're going to read. All right. So, with that said, guys. I'll just tell you about them. Things are not always 100% over at the Davis household. I have my times where I feel like I'm saddened by a situation, or things aren't going my way, or I've messed up. I mess up all the time, guys. I'm not always the best example I can be. I'm not always happy with my own performance. Um, you know, I let people down just as much as the next guy. This will never be a stream about I'm better than you. This will always be a stream of let's all understand we've got work to do. And I feel like do some measure of openness outside of just what I think about things, but some level of openness about what goes on for me helps you guys better understand that I'm being real with you guys in these chats. But I also try not to involve other people who are not part of this stream, or who are not guests, who come on here and involve their business as it relates to mine. I can give you my feelings on something, but if I want to tell a story that out somebody else, out of respect. And I think you guys all understand that. I think that you guys are fine with that. I just wanted to make it clear. For the third time, I'm going to try this. So, in the second book of the Kings, chapter 25, New International Version, Bible Gateway, everybody, use it. It's great. We were talking about, chapter 25. We're actually doing chapter 20, starting in chapter 24. The second book of the Kings, chapter 24. And where we left off, it was Jehoiakim, king of Judah. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, because of course he did. They're a puppet state of Egypt at this point. They're a puppet state of Egypt. Why? Because we know Josiah died, and immediately things fell to crap, and God goes, there you go. That's enough. That's enough. Have you tried beating his ass? It is. Tonight, yes, in Judges. All right, guys. Chapter 24. During Jehoiakim's reign, Nebuchadnezzar. You can't spell Nebuchadnezzar without Chad. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, invaded the land, and Jehoiakim became his vassal for 3 years. Oh, he's just getting passed around like it's prison. But then he turned against Nebuchadnezzar and rebelled. The Lord sent Babylonian, Aramean, Moabite, and Ammonite raiders against him to destroy Judah, in accordance with the word of the Lord proclaimed by his servants and prophets, in accordance with God's beatdown that he's about to do. Also, Babylonian Chaldean is what the footnote said on that. Chaldean. By the way, Chaldean Christians, almost non-existent out. I don't think they do exist in Iraq anymore. Oddly enough, I find a lot of them in Michigan, where the other Middle Eastern residents seem to congregate. Emmanuel. When I argue with people, I usually tell them it's okay. I forgive you. I know I'm right. Oh, terrible. I am the most humble list. Number one on the top of the humble list. In accordance with the word of the Lord proclaimed by his servants and the prophets. Surely these things happened to Judah according to the Lord's command, in order to remove them from his presence because of the sins of Manasseh and all he had done, including the shedding of innocent blood. For he had filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and the Lord was not willing to forgive. The Lord had had enough. He'd had enough. We'd said it before. Can only take so much, and I can't take no more. For he had filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and the Lord was not willing to forgive. As for the other events of Jehoiakim's reign and all he did or didn't do, Are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? Jehoiakim rested with his ancestors, and Jehoiachin, Jehoiachin, his son, succeeded him as king. Unless it's Jehoiakim was followed by Jehoiakim, but you're pronouncing the CH as a K. So it's both of them are Jehoiakim. But the wife just didn't want it to be Jehoiakim Jr. They didn't want to tell their kids Junior or by his middle name or just Buddy. King Buddy. The king of Egypt did not march out of his own country again because the king of Babylon had taken all his territory from the Wadi of Egypt to the Euphrates River. New bad boy on the block. Could have been the Israelites. Could have been the Judeans. All they had to do was exactly what God said in his agreements with Moses, David, with Solomon, with Joshua, all these things. But like all of us, can't get it right. And thus, we can't. This is why we can't have nice things. Jehoiachin, king of Judah. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. Ugh. That's why you can't let 18-year-olds do anything. His mother's name was Nehushta, daughter of Elnathan. Elnathan. That sounds less masculine. She was from Jerusalem. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father had done. So you can get squashed. At that time, the officers of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, advanced on Jerusalem and laid siege to it. And Nebuchadnezzar himself came up to the city while his officers were besieging it. Jehoiachin, king of Judah, his mother, his attendants, his nobles, and his officials all surrendered to him. In the 8th year of the reign of the king of Babylon, he took Jehoiachin prisoner. As the Lord had declared, Nebuchadnezzar removed the treasures from the temple of the Lord and from the royal palace, and cut up the gold articles that Solomon, king of Israel, had made for the temple of the Lord. He carried all Jerusalem into exile. All the officers, and fighting men, and all the skilled workers and artisans, a total of 10,000. Only the poorest people of the land were left. Well, the poor's got to stay. But it's a land blessed, right? But they're probably heavily oppressed. And probably a fair amount of taxes levied. If you are not high on in the pecking order, and you live in a land of bounty, that bounty's all getting shipped out. But this is interesting. Solomon built a great temple for the Lord and did great honor to the Lord from one man, understanding that he had much to be thankful for, and he had much to give, and his people had much to be thankful for. But so much evil had been done in there at that point. It might as well have been a Bentley with a roach infestation in it. A penthouse full of bed bugs and lice and rodents and mold, all the things, all the bad things that make some place not a place you want to be. That's what sin does to a culture, to a place, to your soul. God said, this is too much. This temple is beyond redemption. The Bible, so I will give it over to the people of this world. And that's what happened. Nebuchadnezzar took Jehoiachin captive to Babylon. He also took from Jerusalem to Babylon the king's mother, his wives, his officials, and the prominent people of the land. The king of Babylon also deported to Babylon the entire force of 7,000 fighting men, strong and fit for war, and 1,000 skilled workers and artisans. He made Mattaniah, Jehoiachin's uncle, king in his place, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah. She was from Libnah. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, just as Jehoiakim had done, and everyone else. It was because of the Lord's anger that all this happened to Jerusalem and Judah, and in the end, he thrust them from his presence. Now Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. So in the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, marched against Jerusalem with his whole army. He camped outside the city and built siege works all around it. The city was kept under siege until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. Funny thing here, Zedekiah decides he wants to rebel. And it's going to be noted in other books that the Israelites, the Hebrews, are generally viewed as a rebellious type of people. They rebel against God. They rebelled against Moses. They split into two nations. They rebelled against Egypt a bit and some of their other oppressors. And now they're rebelling against the Babylonians. What we're not seeing here, they're just saying that they're rebelling, that we don't like our situation. The situation they put themselves in, mind you, but it doesn't say anything here that they asked the Lord, to deliver them. In fact, what we're seeing here is not a lot of contrition, not a lot of repentance, asking for forgiveness. We're not seeing any worship. We're just seeing sin pile on top of consequence, pile on top of sin, pile on top of consequence. Nobody is learning. Nobody is being faithful. That's what it appears from reading this. By the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine in the city had become so severe that there was no food for the people to eat. Then the city wall was broken through, and the whole army fled at night through the gate between the two walls near the king's garden, through the Babylonians surrounding the city. They fled toward Arabah, but the Babylonian army pursued the king and overtook him in the plains of Jericho. All his soldiers were separated from him and scattered, and he was captured. He yeeted himself out of the promised land, and they just ran like a wild animal. Just bust right through that army. Nope, we're just going to run, and we're going to keep running. Didn't work. He was captured. He was taken to the king of Babylon at Riblah, where sentence was pronounced on him. They killed the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes. Then they put out his eyes, bound him with bronze shackles, and took him to Babylon. And we were just talking about the Alec Murdoch case. Having your kids killed, a kid, loved ones killed, and just coming up on it afterwards. It's devastating. Of course, who knows? Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he's like the other kings who, sacrifice their sons and daughters into fires and to appease Molech. Sick of it. So maybe it didn't hurt him. I bet you putting out his eyes did. That would not be the last thing I would want to see. Ever. On the 7th day of the 5th month, in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan, commander of the imperial guard, an official of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. He set fire to the temple of the Lord. Why not? It's already been completely looted. Set fire to the temple of the Lord, the royal palace, and all the houses of Jerusalem. Every important building he burned down. The whole Babylonian army under the commander of the imperial guard broke down the walls around Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, the commander of the guard, carried into exile the people who remained in the city. Oh, all the poors are gone, along with the rest of the populace and those who had deserted to the king of Babylon. But the commander left behind some of the poorest people. Oh, never mind. Left behind some of the poorest people of the land to work the vineyards and the fields. They're slaves. The Babylonians broke up the bronze pillars, the movable stands, and the bronze sea that were at the temple of the Lord, and they carried the bronze to Babylon. They also took away the pots, shovels, wick trimmers, dishes, and all the bronze articles used at the temple service. The commander of the imperial guard took away the censers and sprinkling bowls, all that were made of pure gold or silver. Be honest with you, look, we know this because we're reading it because God okayed it. And even if I know God was like delivering this stuff into the hands of the Babylonians, if I was a Babylonian God, I'm like, I don't know if I want to steal from a God. Maybe it's some sort of power trip thing to say, oh, look what I've got as a trophy. I don't want that on me. I don't want that on me. I don't know about you guys. I'm not taking it. I'm like, yeah, I could be rich. I'd rather not be cursed. The bronze from the two pillars, the sea, and the movable stands, which Solomon had made for the temple of the Lord, was more than could be weighed. Each pillar was 18 cubits high. This is gold. 18 cubits high. That is about 27 feet. Good night. 27 feet of gold. The bronze capital on top of one pillar was 3 cubits high and was decorated with a network of pomegranates of bronze all around. The other pillar with its network was similar. The commander of the guard took as prisoners Sariah, the chief priest, Zephaniah, the priest next in rank, and the 3 doorkeepers. Of those still in the city, he took the officer in charge of the fighting men and 5 royal advisors. He also took the secretary, who was chief officer in charge of conscripting the people of the land, and 60 of the conscripts who were found in the city. Nebuzaradan, the commander, took them all and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. There at Riblah, in the land of Hamath, the king had them executed. So Judah went into captivity away from her land. There's the exile. We had an exodus in, and we've got an exile out. The Hebrews, the Israelites, and the Judeans, the chosen tribes of God, those of the covenant established with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, are now sowing, or they are reaping what they sowed with their deep sins. Nico, I know I missed a few readings, but the Kings has been pretty much the same thing. There is new king follow their dads or not, and repeat. Very similar. Yeah. What it's basically demonstrating is, especially with Israel, how deeply divorced from God they became. And it started with leadership. Again, how did we start off Samuel? Right? Y'all don't want a king. Y'all don't want a king. You're not going to like it. You're not going to like what happens out of it. With judges, there's much less leadership. The corruption's easier to remove. There's discussions about it, right? What we have here, we have deep infrastructure and people following bad people. It's much more the king and less the word. Before it was the word and people just ignored it. They don't seem to be ignoring the kings. But you also missed the few bright spots with guys like Hezekiah and Josiah. I know you're catching it on the replays though. But it also shows how deeply sinful some of them were and how deeply faithful some of them were as well. And that even the faithful had their shortcomings. So even again, this is another thing I love about the Old Testament. The heroes, the greats, right? We think of them as righteousness. They had their flaws too. We all fall short of the glory of God. And what it also shows is how much patience God. We think that sometimes God's judgments are harsh in the Old Testament. We look at exactly how present God is, like physically present God is with these folks, and they're still choosing to be disrespectful in his sight, and exactly how much patience he shows before he's like, you guys need a timeout after I beat you, after I give you a whipping. 1, Nebuchadnezzar. 2, King of Judah. 3, Jerusalem siege. 4, rise up Babylon Sensai. I don't know what that means. Probably rebellion. 5, rude boys flee promised land. 6, bronze shackles. Multiple songs. 7, bronze. I guess these are all reggae songs. I've never really listened to reggae except there was a band when I was a kid. My parents took us to Disney and we did the Disney prepackaged, the Disney for 3 days, cruise for 4 days, or Disney for 4 days, cruise for 3 days. Can't remember. It was a week, and they split it up. And the Disney cruise went to the Caribbean, to the Bahamas. So we went down to the Bahamas, and we were riding. It was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. We're riding on one of the boats, the excursion boats, to get to the beach from the boat, and they had a reggae band playing. And my mom said that I was 9 years old. I just turned 9 years old, and she said I was just dancing around. She said it was one of her favorite memories of me. Exodus movement of Yah people. So, I mean, that's most of my experience. That's almost the entirety of my experience with reggae. Just haven't been around it. All right, MR, if you put it in there, I'll look at it. Judah's went into captivity away from her land. Judah's in timeout. And what a sad state this is from where we are with what God's talking about to Abraham. Let's see if we could. Let's go back for a bit. Let's go back. We're almost done for tonight. We've got a couple more passages to read. But let's go back to Genesis. The Lord's covenant with Abram. Then the word of the Lord came to him, this man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, he said to him, so shall your offspring be. Abraham said, believe the Lord, and he credited to him as righteousness. He also said to him, I am the Lord, who brought you out of Ur to the Chaldeans, to give you this land to take possession of it. No notif, big sad. Look, you know when I'm going going to be on. If you're not new to this, why you make Susan angry? Hella mad at me. She's on her way out, so I'm not worried about her. Look, I'll go to Rumble if they block me here. But I haven't had my PP slapped yet. Welcome, Nernath. Anyway, going back to this. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two with the ginsu, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and the darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants, I give this land from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites. I always forget the Girgashites. And Jebusites. This is an amazing thing. The Lord coming to Abram, who becomes Abraham. The Lord coming to Abraham in a vision, much like he does to Solomon, to talk to him and prophecy a bit about him. And what comes to pass coming out of that coming out of Judah, or coming out of Egypt and into Israel, and how cheaply the Israelites and Judeans felt that their faith was, that they hoarded out to false gods and demons. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, to be over the people that he had left behind in Judah. When all the army officers and their men heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah as governor, they came to Gedaliah at Mizpah. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, Jonathan, son of Kariah, Sariah, son of Tanhumeth, the Netophanite, Jesnani, I hate these names, Jazaniah, the son of the Makathite, and their men. Gedaliah took an oath to reassure them and their men. Do not be afraid of the Babylonian officials, he said. Settle down in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it will go well with you. Take your medicine, guys. Take your medicine, take your lumps, take your punishment, and go with it. In the 7th month, however, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama, who was of royal blood, came with 10 men and assassinated Gedaliah, and also the men of Judah and the Babylonians who were with him at Mizpah. At this, All the people from the least to the greatest, together with the army officers, fled to Egypt for fear of the Babylonians. This is how bad things have gotten. There is no sense of anything. There's no sense of faith anymore. Jehoiachin released. In the 37th year of the exile of Jehoiachin, king of Judah, in the year of Marduk became king of Babylon, he released Jehoiachin, king of Judah, from prison. He did this on the 27th day of the 12th month. He spoke kindly to him and gave him a seat of honor higher than those of the other kings who were there with him at Babylon. Jehoiachin put aside his prison clothes and for the rest of his life ate regularly at the king's table. Blind by it, by the way. Day by day, the king gave Jehoiachin a regular allowance as long as he lived. Nernaeth said, the amazing thing is that God made the promises here. And even as Abram was set to walk down the middle and seal the deal, but God knew Israel would wander. So he walked down and promised to keep both sides. Thank you, Nernaeth. I always like your sage thoughts put out here. MR, wait, so this is their second or third enslavement? I think it's their second kind of enslavement. I don't know if this is official enslavement, or this the Egyptians count as the first enslavement, and then pretty much it's been various degrees of oppression, right? Or being a tertiary state or what have you. They're not self-governing as much as they want to be. And part of that is because they wanted to be self-governing even with God there. It was the first time they were kicked out of their homes, right behind the Israelites. Egypt was kind of their own choice. Well, I take that back. No, it wasn't really their choice to leave. The Egyptians pretty much kicked them out. They were happy to leave, and then they weren't happy to leave after they had left. There's no pleasing some people. But yes, and I think that, and this was one of the things I was talking about last Tuesday night or Monday night. I think part of that shows that from the beginning there may have been people who weren't on board with the Exodus. Like they left and they probably were pretty happy when they were saying, hey, maybe I don't want to leave, but you're going to give me all this gold as you tell me I have to leave. So I guess I'll just take your jewelry and go. But then once life starts to get hard, they want to go right back to where they came from. And there you have it. While in Israel, they were oppressed on and off by Philistines, Moab, and the crew. Yeah, mostly through Judges. Mostly during Judges. Not everybody could be based and God-pilled like Joshua. So, and there we have it. That's Kings. Let's just take a sneak peek up at Chronicles. Ooh, we start off with some genealogy next week. I'll see how long this genealogy goes on. Yeah, we're not doing all that in one night. So we'll break that up. Chronicles 1 is 29 chapters. Chronicles 2 is 36 chapters. So we got We got a fair amount coming through there. We'll start with First Chronicles on Monday. Tomorrow, like I said, this is going to be we're going to be doing an open topic tomorrow. And we'll probably be discussing Alec Murdoch and my thoughts on it and y'all's thoughts on it if you have any. And then I'll try to shamelessly grift off of that in the title. Oh, here we go, Matt. Here we go. Thanks for the chat consideration as well wishes, brother. I served in Iraq mechanized infantry, end of OIF 1. Replacement linked up in country and thought seeing Babylon would be cool, but not near our AO. I was in Al Assad with the 29th Lid, 224th Aviation Battalion. We were in Balad, TQ, Haditha, Fallujah, all over the place. Bradley Stryker. I saw the beginnings of the Strikers coming in. So I went to basic at Fort Knox. So I was there with a lot of the OSIC guys. I was just BCT. That was one of the coolest things. Okay, from Anaconda. Man, I've totally forgot about Anaconda. What was I gonna say? Oh, nothing was cooler because look, I went to basic in October 31st of 2001. So Fort Knox was Fort Knox on steroids. But there was a lot of emotions with everybody involved. But when you're just in the military, you're as hood as you can go. It was really pumped. It was something when you're road marching down the road and a column of Abrams tanks or Bradleys just passes you right down the road and right in between the column, and you're sitting there marching along, and it's like you feel like you're just in the middle. You're ready for battle. You drill sergeants calling the cadence, doing airborne ranger, along a silver jet, and dropped into a all the combat zone stuff. I mean, it is just you're ready. Your blood's up. You're ready to go in the battle. They could have put me right in there and put me into infantry right at that moment. But I've been okay. I've been all absolutely okay with it. So does that mean so that means you were at Fort Knox, I'm assuming, for OSA training? 19 Delta? MR was Moab tie into the Marine things at all? No. Thanks for the service, Matthew. Yes. Thank you. Always enjoy seeing my fellow vets. East Balad, 30 minutes from Anaconda. Yep. Fob renamed Palawada. A company, 1st to the 8th. Oh, 11 Brav. Oh, 11 Brav. Oh, okay. Yeah. Benning has the Patton Museum now, which kind of upset me because I really wanted to take my kids to Knox to see, kind of where I was, where my military life really started, and also go to the Patton Museum, which, guys, I recommend anybody, if you've got any type of military history, if you're a military history buff at all, if you've been to the Air and Space Museum, Smithsonian, if you're down in Georgia, got the opportunity to go to Benning. I haven't been to the Benning Museum, part of the museum yet, so I don't know what the setup's like. But the Patton Museum was awesome and probably still is. It's nothing but tanks. And there's a little Stewart tank out there, named after my great uncle, Jeb Stewart. So, but yeah, it's yes, infantry museum was built around a Bradley. That's funny. We've got the Marine Corps Museum up here because Quantico's about an hour, 10 minutes away from here. Oh, really? National Air and Space Museum is 80% closed. Don't go see it until winter this year. Massive redesign. I have a small part in it. Nurnath, let me know the best time to when all that stuff is wrapping up and the best time to see it. Because I've been meaning. My kids. I should have taken my son 2 years ago there already. But I'm deeply remiss especially as close as I live, and then I've got family that lives near there. To get them up to DC because the Smithsonian might be the only museum, might be the only redeeming part of DC is that those museums are awesome. And I haven't been to the one at Dulles yet either. Nurnath, you just keep me up to date on that. Don't know what Benning and Stewart are named now. Well, I'm right down the street from Lee. And I don't know. It's all they've what is it, Liberty now or Patriot? They're naming them all these stupid, obnoxious names. It's always going to, you grow up in the Richmond area, it's always going to be Fort Lee. It's always going to be Fort AP Hill. It's always going to be Fort Pickett. Yes, they did name it. They did name a base after him after that charge. He gets a lot of grief. Pickett did have was a pretty respectable respectable officer. And maybe he made a bit of a mistake, but big part of that mistake was Lee. So, all right. That said, maybe we can talk more about museums tomorrow. Show coming up. All right. So tomorrow, plan on it. But remember, they do end up being later, so it might be 8:30, might be 9 o'clock before this stream might start. So maybe then you should start looking for the notification, Nurnath. Maybe then, but generally, from now on, show starts at 8:30. With that said, guys, MR still for Dix, Fort Dix. Yeah, it's probably not. Probably not. Houston Space Museum is great too. I'm sure it is, except for space isn't real. There's only the dome. USS. Is it USS North Carolina? Whichever one's at Cape Fear, North Carolina. That one was okay. I thought it was battleship. When I went to get my first battleship, I mean they're big, but I kind of felt like it should have been bigger. Like the bridge is small. The bridge on a battleship is small. We did our primo out Fort Dix. It was my first time in New Jersey. It wasn't a very pleasant experience from some it wasn't my best experience as a southerner coming up to a northern thing when the bus driver pulls up and says, "Are you getting in?" It's like, "Oh, I guess I'm in a Yankee state now." All right, MR, never apologize. The more active in the chat, the better. Nico's been quiet, but I know he's got crap internet and he's traveling right now. So everybody, Nurnath, MR, Matthew, fellow Army bro. Didn't know that. Cool to know. Nico, Emmanuel, Dresden, I think that's it. Guys, thanks for being in the chat. Thanks for giving me somebody to talk to. Thanks for giving me y'all's thoughts on this and making the show better. Guys who are just watching, thank you for your attention, your ears. Glad I can be of service as some sort of distraction for you and possibly learning or discipleship for what it's worth. For all of you who are catching this on replay, thank you. I noticed that I do notice that the view counts go up. Dude, this is gonna get dozens of views. I understand that I'm small as far as the channel. But guys, you guys make this is a big part of where I spend my time every night. You guys, big part of that. So you all have a very good night. We'll meet up tomorrow. Ring in the weekend. Be good and God bless.